Michael and Karen J.Sliwa were dedicated high school teachers in Arizona. Mike has also been an active member of Cactus Picks for 15 years. Recently, both he and Karen made a life-altering decision.
My wife Karen and I decided, after being in public education for a combined 20 years, that we were going to leave the educational system and become students, not in a traditional sense, but in a sense where we're going to go out and kind of travel and learn from other people. So in May we quit our jobs to pursue a life of, I guess, traveling nomadically via eventually backpack and traveling from different homesteads and learning different skills.
What led to this decision?
Both of us had become a little bit disillusioned with public education, and being in it on a daily basis, we could see that we were not really, I guess, growing like we wanted to grow personally. I mean, we loved our job, we loved the kids, we just didn't love the bureaucracy that went along with it. And so we just made a decision that we didn't want to wait around for retirement to do what we wanted to do, because retirement's never really guaranteed. And so one day, and I've been thinking about this for a couple of years, of I really wanted to travel and I wanted to explore different areas of the world and at the same time learn things. And so one day I was bored at school during my prep period, and I typed in the Google. I typed in, I think, something like traveling the world on a shoestring budget. And this site came up about working on homesteads, and talked to Karen about it. This was, I think, April of the previous year before we kind of left the following May, and kind of made a plan.
Tell us about your journeys and adventure.
Well, we started in June of 2011 in a little homestead in New Mexico. A friend of mine, somebody actually contacted after reading an article in the newspaper. He wrote about what he was going to do about homesteading, and so I was interested in it, contacted him and talked to him and became friends, and he invited us out to stay at his place for that summer. So we stayed at his homestead, which is just a hair under 3 acres in southwest New Mexico. And we spent the days pretty much just homesteading. So we would get up early, about 6:30, and we would milk goats. There was 2 goats. And then we would check for eggs for the ducks and the chickens. And then we'd go have breakfast, and then he usually had kind of the plan of the day, whether we were going to plant or dig some garden beds. We built some structures. We worked probably 4 to 6 hours each day, and then we had the rest of the days to ourselves. So we did that for 3 months, and then we went down the road to another friend of ours, and we kind of house sat and homesteaded their place for 2 weeks while they were on vacation, and did similar things.
What was the reaction of friends and family when you made this big decision?
Pretty much the same reaction, really. Friends a little different than family. If I start with friends, most friends were excited for us, yet they would say that the common phrase was, "I really love what you're doing, but I could never do it." Family, a little more concerned in the beginning, because they were concerned about the basic general needs that we consider needs in our society. What are you going to do about insurance if you get sick? What are you going to do about money? How much money do you have? How are you going to travel once you leave the U.S. and get your car, and are you ever going to get a job again? So things like that. But as time went on, and as people came or watched our blog, or if they came to visit us and talk to us more, I think it kind of set everybody else at ease that we really weren't taking a big of risk as everybody thought we were, because we're not going to starve. I'm living in a very wealthy country. I have, a middle-class existence, and I have friends and family, and I have an education, so we weren't going to fall on our face if we failed, so to speak. So I think people think we're taking a bigger risk than we actually knew we were.
In your journeys, what have you learned? What was your self-discovery?
That I really don't know all that much about how to take care of myself, in a sense where if I had to really fend for myself, and I mean by, I had to get my own food and my own water and build my own shelter, I would be SOL. Because like most people in our culture, I have to go to the store for my food and turn on a tap or buy bottled water, and I would buy or rent a house or an apartment. And so if you would transport me back to a different time or into a different location, outside of the U.S. and maybe a poorer country, I would be screwed. And I just felt that I didn't really have a connection to the world I live in, because I'm constantly I felt like I was using the world a little more than actually living in it. And then I felt, if I'm really using it, am I living at all? So I think I've discovered that I have a lot to learn and probably not as much time as I would like. It would have been nice to come across this self-discovery about 20 years ago. I needed to arrive at this place mentally, and it was a long journey, but that's what that's what it's about. Guy McPherson is the person that I stayed with for our first homesteading, and he is a former professor at University of Arizona, and he wrote an article that was picked up by the Arizona Republic in their editorial page in April of 2008, and it was titled "The End of the World as We Know It." And my dad handed me the article. He just said, you need to read this, and I read it, and it was about guy was saying that he thought the industrial age was coming to an end quickly, and that we would be in the post-industrial Stone Age within, I think he said, about a decade. And I was like, what? And he talked about the concept of peak oil, which is, getting to a point where we don't use as much oil, or we don't have enough oil that we would like to maintain the growth of our society. And so I looked at it, read it, passed it on to a couple of my friends that I worked with, and we called him up on a conference call. And we just basically sat there in silence while he answered our questions about the collapse of the ecosystem in capitalism. So it followed up where we'd email each other back and forth, and I told him our plans eventually, what Karen and I wanted to do. And he had left his job and started a homestead, and he said, "You're welcome to start with us." And so we went out there, and he was very gracious. Him and his wife and the couple that they share the property with and their young child, and he's become a good friend. WOOF is an acronym for Worldwide Opportunities on Organic Farms, and it's kind of a social network for people that want to go work on homesteads or farms, and for people who want people to come in and work on their farm or homestead. And so what you do is you join the site and you contact via email a potential host, somebody who owns a farm or a homestead, and see if you can meet what their needs are. So if they need somebody for 2 weeks to help put up some fencing, and you happen to want to go to Utah to go do that or explore an area, you set it up with them, and generally, it's a trial period of a couple weeks. If they want you longer and it kind of works out for the both of you, then the relationship is continued. And so it's all over the world. There's thousands of farms in most every country in the world. And there's other sites that do it. One is woof.org. There's another one called HelpX. There's another one called growfood.org. So there's multiple organizations that really just put people in contact with each other who have similar interests and needs. And so when I came across it, I thought, is this for real? Because you don't really have to pay for any food or any shelter. You just have to get your butt there and do some work. And it was real. It's going on since the mid-1970s, and it started in Great Britain, and it has grown dramatically. And so it's a wonderful thing. We talked about going to Central America initially. We were going to go and visit Belize, and we looked at going there because we'd spent some time in Nicaragua, which was great. But we didn't know how we would travel and what the traveling would be like between countries in Central America. And that, quite frankly, there weren't as many opportunities as there were where we are going to go now. We're going to go to Europe instead. But I'd never been to Europe. Karen's been to Europe. And, for example, there were probably only maybe a couple dozen farms at best in Belize to go to. Just more opportunity. Plus, I'd never been there. And I think traveling in Europe is going to be a little easier on our budget. More choices to make in how to get between places. So that's what we're going to do next. We're probably going to leave within our deadline. We'd like to get out of here before March 1st. And people always ask, well, how long are you going to be gone? I don't know. I think a long time. I don't. And what I mean by that, I think at least a year to 2 years is kind of the, because once I get there and I spend the money to get there, I'd like to, explore it all. And so that's going to take some time. And figuring out visas and stuff like that. But people can follow us on our blog if they just Google "chasing a different carrot." It's usually the first thing that pops up on Google, and they click that link. And we do a video blog, which I update when I'm on the road about every 2 to 3 weeks. And once in a while we do a essay as well.